What I don't want is our party to be taken over by Liberals.
Today we're going to look at the record of Yuri Fulmer, a candidate for the BC Conservative leadership who's styling himself as a defender of true conservative values. And to prove his conservative credentials, Fulmer says he'll repeal DRIPA, scrap DEI, and put BC workers first.
But somebody is going to have to stand up, make sure DRIPA is repealed.
But Fulmer is very careful about crafting his image. And when he was running Capilano University, he projected a very different image of himself.
And unceded is really a very pretty word that actually should be substituted with stolen. We stand today on lands that were stolen from Indigenous people.
An image that was a little more progressive.
What we need is reconciliation, not to be about talk, not to be about a group of settlers sitting in a room contemplating how they can feel better about themselves, of settlers.
And a little more committed to radical DEI.
I'd like to first acknowledge that we gather today on the unceded territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Sechelt, Squamish, and Musqueam nations.
And if you've been misled about who the real Yuri Fulmer is, then get ready for the truth. Because in the words of Yuri Fulmer, his true story may be a little triggering.
I'm going to preface these stories with a warning. They talk about difficult subjects. Subjects that I acknowledge might be tough for some people to hear, and indeed for some of you they may be triggering.
That's the real Yuri Fulmer. Yuri Fulmer became the chancellor of Capilano University in 2020, at the height of the woke craze sweeping North America. This gave Fulmer an opportunity to show real leadership and stand up for free speech and true academic freedom. But instead, he delivered what all the other universities were delivering: DEI. In February of 2024, Capilano passed a diversity, inclusion, and equity policy, which enshrined discrimination into the university. The university's definition of equity says it goes beyond equal treatment, where everyone is treated the same, because some people or groups of people might need to be treated differently.
All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others.
But once you strip the polite language, it's clear what this is calling for: discrimination. And under Yuri Fulmer's leadership, Capilano aggressively pushed this racist and divisive ideology on their students. Over at Capilano's Department of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, Yuri Fulmer's employees promoted a guide titled Anti-Racism Resources for White People. This list includes articles on how to raise racial consciousness in little kids. It includes articles promoting illegal immigration, articles promoting acts of violence at protests, promoting Robin DiAngelo's racist book Like Fragility, the 1619 Project, and a long list of social media accounts promoting destructive and deadly policies like safe supply and defund the police. Every radical, destructive, progressive cause of the past 5 years you can think of was being actively promoted to students by Yuri Fulmer's Department of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Fulmer is the sitting chancellor of Capilano University. If he wanted to stop this madness, he could stop it right now. But despite claiming he's against DEI and the NDP's radical land back agenda, he's done nothing to stop it. And Fulmer's progressive DEI push doesn't end with students. Go to Capilano's job postings, and even those contain land acknowledgements. And the very next paragraph, the job postings reaffirm their ongoing commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion before stating their preference for various identity groups. And if you don't think Yuri Fulmer stands by this posturing, we once again turn back to his commencement speech in 2024.
And unceded is really a very pretty word that actually should be substituted with stolen. We stand today on lands that were stolen from Indigenous people.
Of course, one might say, okay, this is a university, and this is just the game he has to play. But the problem is that his commitment to DEI and his belief that our province is fundamentally stolen is not just limited to his time at Capilano. He believes in it so much, he even brought it into his private business.
Decolonization is about recognizing, challenging, and ultimately dismantling power structures that oppress the colonized. It's about recognizing those tools of oppression and exploitation that continue to harm people in our country.
This is Kevin Lambereau, the Associate Vice President of Indigenous Affairs at the University of Winnipeg. He was hired by Yuri Fulmer at his company to become a special advisor on truth and reconciliation. And in 2021, Fulmer and Lambereau collaborated to publish a video talking about how to fight Canada's history of systemic racism. As Fulmer's company noted in the description, we all need to be taking personal steps towards reconciliation and recognize that we are all responsible to help dismantle the legacy of colonialism. And this wasn't just a one-off moment from Fulmer's company. He did stuff like this over and over and over again. And it wasn't until he ran for BC Conservative leadership when this content was taken off his website, hoping nobody would notice. But DEI and an obsessive commitment to radical reconciliation were not just empty words from Fulmer. They showed up in his actions, too.
And 20% of our businesses are led by other equity-deserving groups.
Yuri would brag openly about how many people he was hiring from the slate of progressive identity groups. And how did he find so many equity-deserving people, you may ask? Part of the strategy was importing temporary foreign workers. Back in January, Fulmer admitted that his company hired dozens of temporary foreign workers to staff his restaurants. According to Fulmer, there was no alternative to hiring foreigners to staff restaurants, even as BC's youth unemployment rate sits above 17%. Even if that were true, all this points in a very concerning direction. DEI, land acknowledgements, adopting progressive language, bragging about race in hiring, and demanding that everyone be involved in the process of decolonization. One of these can be a mistake, but all of this together is a trend of clear progressivism, which raises the question, why does Yuri Fulmer want to lead the BC Conservative Party? And that brings us back to Fulmer's bid to lead the BC Conservatives and become premier. Between DRIPA, DEI, and temporary foreign workers, Fulmer doesn't oppose the NDP's agenda, he built his career on it. Why would British Columbians want to replace one NDP premier with a knockoff version? BC needs a premier with the energy and conviction to stop the left's radical agenda for our province. BC needs a premier who will stand up for property rights, common sense, and for BC workers. Yuri Fulmer spent 6 years championing DRIPA, pushing DEI, and importing temporary foreign workers. Now he wants you to believe he's changed. And for what? Not to defeat the NDP, and certainly not because Yuri Fulmer deeply cares about fighting back against DEI and radical reconciliation. It's not a conversion, it's a costume change. Because Yuri Fulmer isn't a conservative trying to win power. If Fulmer really cared about defeating wokeness, DEI, and the radical land back agenda, he wouldn't have spent the last 6 years promoting it. BC Conservatives can't afford to hand the party over to a man who spends years promoting the very policies he now claims to oppose. We need you to help us stop Yuri Fulmer. Share this video. It's really important that you do.